another video for you guys. I am so excited to film this one because it is something that hits close to home. So this is gonna be a story time video about online dating and my horrible experiences. I mean, like horrible experiences, like the worst. I was only able to narrow 2 down for you guys because if I told you all of the crap that I get online, we'd be here all night and we don't have time to be here all night. So I narrowed it down to 2 experiences that seriously stick out in my brain. You guys, I will never forget these terrible dates. So let's face it, everybody online dates nowadays. Like, if people tell you that they've never online dated, they're lying to you. You shouldn't trust them. Like, even if it was for no more than 2 days, everyone for the most part has at least created a profile. When I tell you guys that I have done the most when it comes to online dating, like, no one can top me. Try and find somebody. I have been on Tinder, Bumble, Plenty of Fish, OkCupid, Mutual, Christian Mingle, FarmersOnly.com for an hour. I even went so far as to pay for a subscription for Match, which, by the way, I want my money back because I'm still single. I'm gonna write to Match and demand a refund. Anyway, the thing is, online dating is not all bad. I know friends who have met their husbands, who have had serious relationships, they've gotten married and had kids, but you know what? That's not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about the wonder that is online dating. We're here to talk about the horror that is online dating. So let's dive right in. Date number 1 that sticks out in my mind, I can't remember his name, so let's call him John. John and I met, we met on Tinder. He didn't have a car, so he took the bus. Now, this was like years ago, you guys, years ago. Like when Harry Potter movies were still in the theater, that's literally how long ago this was. So I met John on Tinder. We chatted for a little bit and he was like, oh, like, you're so hot. And I was like, duh. So he was like, let's go to the movies. I can't remember which Harry Potter we saw. We were supposed to meet up in Boulder, CenturyLink Theater. I get there, homeboy standing in line. He sees me. Actual representation right here. JJJ! Yo, JJJ! I was like looking around and like people were looking at me and I was like JJJ? That's literally how he greeted me.
Yo, JJJ!
Just in case you missed it and you wanted to see it again. So I get there and like everything's fine and I'm like, hey, like, how's it going? We get to the window. I pay for my ticket. He tells me that he doesn't have the money to pay for my ticket. Yeah. So we get inside the theater and the previews start playing and he wants to talk. I mean, he wants to have like legit conversations. Like where were you born? How many siblings do you have? Like, what's your sign? Are we compatible? Etc., etc., etc. Everyone's like looking around and he's not talking quietly. He's like, so where are you from? Chicago. Cool, do you have any siblings? Yeah, like one brother. Oh, that's cool, what's his name? So I'm like looking around and I'm like, you know, trying to end the conversation, like shut up. Like, we're in the middle of the theater, like, shut up. The movie starts, all right? Now I'm sitting there and I have a mosquito bite on my elbow, okay? So I'm sitting there and I'm just like watching the movie. Leans over to me. Hey, you know what helps with itching? You know? Saliva. Now I'm thinking that this is like a fun fact, like he read it on the back of a Laffy Taffy wrapper or something like that. He leans over, grabs my elbow, and licks it. You guys, he licked my elbow. Like, and it was like a good one, like a good lick, like he licked my elbow. I couldn't believe it. I was just sitting there and I was just like, and he was like, did that help? What kind of question is that? Did that help? I don't know. I'm traumatized from you licking my elbow. I sneak out. I told him, I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom, like, I'll be back. I run to the women's bathroom and I call my friend George. Shout out to you for saving me that night. And I was like, this is the worst date I've ever been on. Like, he licked my elbow. I don't know what to do. I'm panicking. Like, please, please, please help me. Like, come pick me up. I stayed in the bathroom until George got there, got in his car, and he dropped me off. You guys. He licked my elbow. I can't. I cannot. So that was like maybe like 6, 7, 8 years ago. And I still am traumatized. I still have nightmares about it. And, you know, on dates, I keep my elbows covered at all times. And I'm just still recovering. So date number 2, okay? This one, I feel like you guys are really gonna enjoy this one. So I met, let's call him Devin. I met Devin on Bumble. And out of all of the online dating apps that I have been on or am currently on, Bumble seems to be where I have had the most success. Like, for the most part, everyone on there has a job, you know, they have a car, they can afford to pay for your dinner. So for the most part, Bumble seems to be the most reliable. So I figured, like, we're gonna give this guy a shot. Like, I'm super excited. Now, we were supposed to go to dinner here in my town, good old Longmont, and he was driving up. And so to start it off weird, I was getting ready, right? And he kept calling me. Like, he would call me and then I would call him back and then he wouldn't answer. Or he would call me and I would pick up and he would hang up. And we were like doing this for like 5 minutes until finally I texted him and I was like, are you okay? Like, did something happen? Like, do you need to cancel? And he was like, oh no, like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know why I did that. Neither do I. And if you don't know and I don't know, and it was just very awkward. So I was like, okay, like, whatever. Like, it's not that big of a deal. So I get there, right? And we walk up, like, we walk towards each other. And he kind of went to hug me, but it was like a, and he grabbed me, pulled me in, but then would stop. And then pulled me closer and then stop. And then finally, like, we were hugging and I was like, that's weird. But I didn't think anything of it. So we're waiting to be seated and the woman's like, oh, how many in your party? And we're like, 2. And she starts walking us to a table and he goes, I don't want to sit there. I was like, okay. So he looks at her and he's like, we need to go upstairs. Like, got this wild look in his eyes, like, we need to go upstairs. I was like, oh, okay, like, Jesus Christ. So she was like, okay, like, I'm really sorry. And she's like, let me go back and see if there's any servers in that area. As everybody knows, you've been to a restaurant, like, servers are assigned certain areas. He goes, why do you need to check your board? Like, it's upstairs. Oh, like, I was looking at her, I was like, I'm really sorry. So we get upstairs and, like, everything's kind of fine. The conversation's flowing. I start talking. Now, I have a natural loud register, like, just a loud voice. This dude tells me, he looks at me and goes, can you use your inside voice? Like, he told me to use my inside voice. First of all, no one's told me to use my inside voice since I was in, like, maybe 3rd grade. And even then, the teacher knew better. Like, you don't tell me to use, I couldn't believe it. I looked at him, I was like, then, you know how you insult somebody and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm really sorry. Like, I was just kidding. Like, I was just playing. Like, no, you weren't. You were not kidding. You told me to use my inside voice. So I was already uncomfortable. I was like, this is not cool. Throughout, the food comes, right? Throughout the meal, he's kind of like chewing, talking, kind of like spitting. Thank goodness he didn't spit on me, because you think you asked me to use my inside voice then. If you had spit your food on me, you really would have saw something. The waitress didn't bring him enough napkins. This dude gets up from the table, starts looking around at empty tables and stealing cloth napkins out of them. He came back with like 5 where the silverware is rolled inside the cloth. He dumps them out, like starts like dumping it out. And he's like, I just need more napkins. I was just like, this is so uncomfortable. So he goes, I gotta go to the bathroom. And I was like, oh, thank God. So then the server comes and she like kind of looks at me. She looks at the plethora of napkins. She looks at the dirty plate. She looks at all the clean silver on the table. And then she looks at me and I'm like I was like, I'm really sorry. And she goes, bad date, huh? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm so sorry that like he was so rude, like profusely apologizing to this waitress. And she's like, no, like you're totally fine. She was like, you know, if you feel uncomfortable, like just let me know. The waitress was concerned for my safety. This guy was a lunatic. Now the check comes. I mean, he did take care of the check, so kudos, Devin, you took care of the check. But then I bring out a piece of gum and he goes, you're not gonna offer me any? And I was like, okay, like here's a piece of gum, like I'm so sorry. So then he goes, so what are you gonna do for the rest of the night? Not you. Like I'm going home alone. And I was like, oh, like I have to go meet a friend for some drinks. And the whole thing was just so terrible. It was so distasteful. Those are only two, you guys. Like, there's plenty more where that came from. And honestly, if you guys want to hear more or know more about all of the terrible dates I've been on, this can literally, I feel like this should be one of three. Like, I mean, we can really keep going with this. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on, and follow me on my Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat because that's where I post a lot of stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you soon. Cheers.